Spot and Style Television presents The Blue Martian. Starring Zac Park, along with his 1928 Ford. Watch as he restores it into a 1960s East Coast hot rod. From outer space.
Alright, so this might look crazy, but this is the weird part of a mock-up on a car where this angle is determined by this angle, determined by this angle, but if you don't have one or the other, you can't determine, X angle. So that's where we're at on this part of Blue Martian. I am going to set the pinion, so it's at 3 degrees. That's roughly where a lot of pinions like to sit. That's not me saying make sure you put yours at 3 degrees. That's just my baseline. It's going to be 3 degrees. Once I get at 3 degrees, I'm going to tack weld my spring perches on so I can get this with the tires on it underneath the car. That's going to give me the rake, which I have that all measured out where I believe the rake to be a certain measurement according to the rims and the tires and so on. But I'm from the Show Me State. I grew up in Missouri, so I want to physically see the rake before I actually weld in my transmission mount. I want to get this set in here. This is going to let me know where the crossbar for my ladder bars have to be. So that gives me where that bar is going to be. That's going to get me my actual ride height in person, actually see it. So I'll be able to know how far the transmission needs to go up and down to give me the intake angle that I want. So I'm going to set my intake up at 0 degrees. Whatever that turns into my output shaft, that determines the pinion angle and so on, so on. So this is that part of the process where I'm tacking this in. I'll be able to put on my ladder bar suspension, then I'll be able to spin it after all the motor and everything is welded in place. All the mounts are welded in place. And then I can get all my angles perfect and solid weld everything. So let's get this going. So I'm gonna get this at 3 degrees now, and my perches are gonna be at the very top. So that's why I wanna set it up here, get the perches straight up and down, get my leaf spring at 0 degrees on the top, tack weld it on, let's get underneath the car. this is a 350 transmission. It's totally just burnt out. It's not worth anything other than I was using it for mock-up. So I actually have my actual transmission in the truck. I'm gonna bolt that up just to make sure the transmission crossmember isn't in a different position, because I'm not sure. This is a 350. I think we're putting a 700 in here. It might even be the newer version of the 700, but when I look at the old pan, I recognize 700. So I'm gonna get that on here and make sure the transmission mount is in the exact same spot. If it's not a problem, because I'll have the right one in here. So I just need to get the depth I want, which I think I'm there. That's my pulley. Gives me plenty of room on the cross member. I have a short water pump that's gonna go way back here now. So my radiator sits just in front right here. Then on the Blue Martian originally, the grill was out here in front of the radiator. So I think I'm just going to do everything the exact same way that they did it, which is somewhat the point. And about ready to weld a transmission crossmember in. I follow the 3 up, 3 down rule. We have the pinion angle 3 degrees up. The output shaft angle is going to be 3 degrees down. Everything else is what it is. All I have to do now is center this transmission left to right. I kind of messed with that a little bit just to kind of get it close. Now I have my cross member in here. It's just pushed in. It's not tacked in or anything like that. But I have this mount bolted to the transmission mount. So I'm pretty much set up to actually get all my measurements to make sure the motor and transmission is straight. Then weld this cross member in here, which I'm really excited about. I want to give a huge shout out to Millworks Hot Rods. They gave us these spring over weld-on perches. These are awesome. That lets us put any axle we want to underneath a Model A traditional style rear suspension. So I really, really want to thank them for supplying us with those spring perches for the Blue Martian. Next, I want to thank Boling Brothers for this awesome transmission crossmember they gave us. It also has these weld-on K-member type setup. So the Blue Martian is going to be very strong. It's going to be like a modern frame. It's going to be just as strong as a modern frame. So after everything they've done for us, they've really set up this frame to be really, really nice, really, really strong. Now, I like to follow the 3 up, 3 down rule. That's just how I do all my engines and rear axles. Rear axle is 3 degrees up. The transmission is going to be 3 degrees down on the output shaft. Right now, all I have to do now is just center it left to right. I did that a little bit a minute ago just to get it close so I could get my transmission cross member bar cut and to length and shaped and all that good stuff. So I have the transmission mount bolted to the bottom of the transmission. Right now, all I gotta do is get a couple measurements and weld all that back up together. Then I'll put my K-member in. Then engine transmission comes out. The whole welding of the frame gets done. Then I can paint this. So this is a really, really good spot to be. got this awesome rear suspension, this 4-link from Millworks Hot Rod. Then I have this tubular crossmember K-member setup from Boling Brothers. And right now I'm just trying to figure out how I'd like to set it up. So these are kind of cut to where they go right underneath the transmission like that, which looks really, really awesome. I love that. But then I need room. What I want to do is connect this center bar for the rear suspension and cut it off and go right into this tube here. So I can't go as narrow as what I would like to, just because of the suspension style that I have. So I need to bring it in far enough to clear all my suspension components. So I'm just trying to figure out what exactly I want to do here. So I think if I come in this far where it's parallel to my frame rail, it clears everything. It clears the mounts and it clears this, which it should never come up that far, but worst case scenario, I don't want anything to bottom out on, you know, something else. So it looks like I'm gonna make them parallel with the frame and cut this bar off here and make sure it just connects to these on both sides. It doesn't go all the way through. I think that's going to give us a lot of structural integrity from this and not be an issue that these don't go directly to the frame. I don't see why that'd be an issue at all, because really these are just going to get pulled forward and back. Obviously nothing's going to move, but that's where the weight's coming from, this direction. It's keeping the rear axle from walking forward and back, which this setup should be pretty sturdy. When you buy a Boling Brothers frame and they have this type of rear suspension, they actually have this kit that works along with their own bracket. And just because I got the two pieces from two different places, that's why they're just not talking to each other. This suspension is good from 1928 to 1948, I think is what it says on the kit. Obviously, again, when I got it, it wasn't rusty like this. Welcome to Virginia. The humidity in the shop here is like 70% humidity. So if anyone wants to sponsor us with a dehumidifier, I'd really appreciate it. But reality, I want to get evenly how far in I want to go from the frame. Get these ready to weld onto here and go ahead and weld this on. Then I'll come in with this and try to match it with this cross member so they both look the same. And we'll be almost done with the frame. And I'm starting to think that I probably want to put the body on, because my body mounts, I mean, this thing's gonna be channeled hard. It came in at 7 inches channeled, so I don't know if I'm gonna go that far with it, but it's gonna be channeled hard, and I want my mounts to probably drill a hole right through the frame and weld in the bolts, or weld in the nuts right in here to the frame, so to zip it right down. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet for the next stage, but let's get this big welding all out of the way. So let's boil down this build out to reality here. So when I'm rolling this axle around on the ground, you can hear things, heavy metal, bouncing around on the inside. I was praying to the hot rod gods that it was possibly keepers that fell out, some type of situation like that where I could replace a couple cheap parts. I can't get the axles separated. I don't have like special tools for 57 Chevy. This shop is early Ford shop. I have banjo tools, all sorts of tools for early Ford stuff, but not late 50s Chevrolet. So I'm like 99% sure that this rear axle is blown up. I can't get my axle out from this side, even though that I pulled the keepers off. You can visually see that the keepers on this is just like a 9-inch, a little bit slightly different design, but it still works the same. So I can't get it apart. Stuff's rolling around on the inside. I have 60 days to get this car driving because I've told everybody this is going to be driving at TROG 2022. It's not going to be 100% done, but it's going to be driving around. We're going to be able to park it and everyone's going to be able to see it before we actually do sheet metal work and paint it. That's what our plan is. We want to get this on the road. We want to show it off before we redo the entire thing paint wise. So I'm going to make an executive decision here. This possibly needs to be completely rebuilt. I really want to use as much of the Blue Martian original stuff as possible, obviously outside from the frame, which I thought it took more work than what was needed. I think I'm going to go ahead and just put one of my other axles underneath this. It's spent thousands of dollars hoping all those parts get here in time. Last 2 years, parts have been terrible about ordering and getting them in a good amount of time. It's either taking a long time or it's back ordered, or they cancel your order 6 months later saying, we don't know we're going to get it, we're going to refund your money. So that's a bad situation to be in with that. The funny part is we got our rims and tires in. I'll show you what those look like. There we go. Look how awesome this sees. Now I don't know how well you can see it in the camera right now because I'm here by myself, but I'll show you some pictures of these. These are 5x5. That's what the lug pattern is on these. This was 5 on 4.5. So we're getting conversions to step it up, but this rear end's blown up. What I have laying around the shop, I have like a 55 Ford rear axle. It's already set up for open drive shaft. So for my world, I'm more used to torque tubes and stuff like that. But so it's already set up to drive shaft. So I mean the widths are similar. I think I'm just gonna put this on an axle where our bolt pattern is actually exactly the same. It doesn't need any conversions, and the axle's already good to go. It just needs new wheel bearings and rear drums rebuilt, which is super simple type stuff. So I'd rather go with the 57 Chevy rear axle. Time and money tells me I need to do a different rear axle and just get this thing on the road. There's always time later on to get a new center section. I can probably get a new center section that's more hot rod gear ratio better than probably what's stock in this, so that might actually be a good idea. Sit on that, get that later, actually get it hopped up. So I think that's the plan. I'm going to throw the mid-50s Ford F100 rear axle underneath this and put this off to the side, And when I get more time, I'll rebuild this to some hot rod specs. I think that's kind of a cool idea. So that's where we're at. I'm waiting for a couple parts for the motor so I can locate it. I need the crank pulley, a couple other things that I don't have here that I had to order. That's going to tell me exactly how close the motor can get to that front cross member. Then I can weld my motor mounts in. In the meantime, I'm literally just going to sit here and weld up everything else on the boxing plates, get that completely finished. So when I put the crossbar in, it's welding that in, just cleaning up a few welds in the front. I don't care about the welds in the back. They're going to stay how they are for strength and rigidity. Up front, I want it to look as good as possible, sanded and smooth, where the frame rail is going to be sticking out for everyone to see at the car show. So I like to build things as practical as possible. It's going to be a show car, but it's not going to be lifted up in the air. You're not going to be looking at it with mirrors and stuff like that. I'm not that kind of show car guy. So that's what's going on with the Blue Martian right now. I wish I stopped it with putting these bolted up to the rear axle, rolling around my garage, but we're just going to stop it at this point right here. I think we're at a good spot. I'm really glad I got the motor in place. So we kind of could see how my headers were going to fit, which they fit awesome. I love how they look. I think they look bitchin'. So thank you guys. We're having huge support for the Blue Martian. I'm getting a lot of messages, emails, comments. We really appreciate all that, guys. You can support this build by going to rodandstyle.com. We actually have Blue Martian shirts, stickers, coffee mugs, stuff like that. Check some of that out. Help support this build so we can make this as badass as possible. This isn't our only build. Rod and Style and me, we have a bunch of builds lined up. So support the channel, like, subscribe, share it. Thank you for watching, guys. Wow, so that feels good. No jacks holding anything up. Nothing needs support. There's a jack right here, but I just haven't taken it out yet. But it feels good to have all this bracing in place, the actual bracing of the frame, and it's holding its own weight. Everything's on its own suspension. The wheel alignment's within 1/8 of an inch. That's how I set my stuff up. So I'm at 3 degrees on my pinion angle, 3 degrees up, 3 degrees down. Then I'm in the middle of my threads on my ladder bar in the back. So that gives me a lot of adjustment right there. My rear axle measurement off my front axle was within 1/8 of an inch from side to side. You can't get any closer to that until the front suspension's all finished, bolted up. The rear suspension's all finished, bolted up. So right at the end, right before I plumb the brake line, stuff like that, I'll get it even closer with all my adjustments, because everything is right in the middle of its thread pitch. So this is a really good place to be. This is something I've been really eager to get to. So I'm very excited about this. I think I say that about every episode, but this is just what I like to do, guys. I get excited, get something done, then I'm excited to do the next part, and I get that done. So very happy with this progress. I think this episode was a big mile marker to get out of the frame. Yes, I have to finish stitch welding a couple of my plates. I need to flip the whole frame upside down and finish welding the bottom of it too. But even with that said, the major framework is complete. Now, I like to get ahead of myself, and I think I'm probably going to do that in the next episode, just because I'm excited. I want to put the cab back on the body, and I want to put the bed back on, I want to put the cab back on the frame and the bed back on the frame. I think that's going to be the next episode. I do want to make body mounts. I want to make bed mounts. All that kind of stuff is going to get welded to the frame too. I want to see how hard I want to channel it. The truck was originally channeled 7 inches, which is crazy. The frame is 4 inches. It was 2 inches below that. All of that is going to determine on the rear bed. I have way bigger tires than what the Blue Martian originally had. Not these, but cheater slicks are going to replace those, but just the same size. So that's the look I want, like drag racing 60s car. So pretty much what it was, just a little bit more fancy is all. And I need to get the bed on, because I am running the fenders. I need to get the bed on and see how far the bed can go down. Typically a Model A pickup roadster looks good where the top of the bed matches the top of the doors. That's my goal. So the bed is going to determine how far the cab can get channeled. I want to stay within 5 to 7 inches channeled, or 4 to 7 inches channeled. So I at least want to cover up the frame. I can bring it as far down as the Blue Martian was originally. I'm fine with that as long as the cab and bed match, the angle is the same, and they're parallel with each other. So that's the next thing I want to get done. put the cabin bed on, and I know how much of this I need to cut off, and I can know how far the bed is going to come down, so I can determine if I want to run a 32 gas tank or do I want to run a spin tank inside the bed. I don't know what I want to do yet, and I need to get those parts ordered. So yeah, that's the next episode, guys. Thank you for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe to the Rod and Style channel. See you next time.